opportunity to stand before people who make the decisions. But let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
You're on record of referring to President William Ruto as underwhelming. And at that time, everything that was about him was not right. So is it right to say that given the right opportunity, you'll always find something to support about him? Because at that time, he was not a good person during campaigns and all that. And then after Azimio lost, all of a sudden, we give fruits where it's due. And you know one thing about life, a dog rarely barks at the person who feeds it. So how effective is that, saying that previously you were strong, you went out strong on that, but right now it needs to be done in closed doors and all that. So what does that say about sidelining, or not really sidelining, about the intensity of criticism? Is it lowered? Is it why? Is that why we're witnessing that?
Now, when I say that President William Ruto was underwhelming, it was in a campaign time in the first place. And during the campaign, I was chairing and coordinating the Azimio Youth Campaign. So first of all, it was not in my business to say good things about then Deputy President William Ruto. And also when I say the Deputy President then was underwhelming, it was in comparison to my presidential candidate, who was Raila Odinga. And I believed that Raila Odinga would actually have done a better job than William Ruto. I believed that we had a better agenda. I believed that our manifesto was much, much better in many aspects than the Kenya Kwanza agenda. But then that is the whole essence of democracy. We were all taken to the people. And the people chose President William Ruto, not me. I did not choose President William, but the people chose President William Ruto. So it was not in my business to continue insisting on my choice, because the people had made a choice. So it was not a question of abruptly I changed my mind. I have never changed my mind. What happened is that I agreed with the decision of the people, because the people had said that President William Ruto has won election. And now what I was able to do at that time was to say, okay, fine. When we sat down as Azimio and started organizing the protests on cost of living and other things, I was part and parcel of the organization. I was part and parcel of the protests that were complaining about the cost of living. My divergent opinion came when we started saying that it should be Ruto must go at that time, because I felt, under what basis? Because remember, I'm in Jubilee. My party leader is former President Uhuru Kenyatta. We were government. We had just been able to transfer power ourselves in Kasarani. So as a person serving a former ruling party, I felt it was a question of double standard for us to actually hand over power to a person, then start saying he should not be the leader. And that is where my point of divergence became, because now at that time, my opinion started varying from most of the Azimio opinion. And we had a conversation at the party level. I was able to voice out what my opinion was, because I kept feeling, let us check the government. But the conversation about there is no president, well, that at some time Azimio was saying this country has no president. I was like, I cannot lead young people towards a conversation that has a dead end. Okay, you will say there is no president, it's exciting, but is it true? It's not. And that's how I came and sold my ideology within the other political party members. And luckily, most of the quorum of the political party actually felt like we were right. And that's where we got out of Azimio. We actually became the first political party to get out of Azimio officially, because we believed that it is not right to be able to hand over power and then spend a lot of time telling the very, very people that there is actually no government. It's actually counterproductive. And number two, I did not believe in taking young people to the streets, because I did not understand why young people needed to die at the time. Yet, we had gone through a democratic process. The people had chosen the leader that they wanted, and therefore going through a process that leads to the loss of lives. Because I knew, as a youth leader, I know that most of the percentage, if not 90% and above, of people who die in protests are actually young people. And my question at the time was, these young people whose lives will get lost, we cannot be able to recall those lives. But somewhere in future, it is possible that the leaders would work together. I'm also on record at that time as having said, when these young people lose their lives and these leaders get to work together in future, would have lost them entirely. And you can be able to see that at that time, when I said that today, you could conveniently call me a prophet.
Okay, prophet of politics. Now, there is the aspect of you speaking out your mind, but right now, the group that you lead, the Jubilee, it's not clear whether it is Jubilee supporting President William Ruto or Jubilee that is in opposition. So
it is very clear. It is very clear. First of all, Jubilee, as it stands today, is the only parliamentary party as a sole political party in Parliament of Kenya. So Jubilee stands in the middle ground. While all other parties today, we have parties that belong to Azimio and parties that belong to Kenya Kwanza. When you go, that's why there is a majority leader. The majority leader, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, is the majority leader of Kenya Kwanza. That means the political parties are affiliated to government. And then there is a minority leader who is Junet, who has the Azimio political parties and those that are actually affiliated to the minority side of parliament. But then there is the other one that I don't know why the media keeps forgetting that there is a whip in parliament. Jubilee is the only party that has a whip, a Jubilee party parliamentary whip, who is Honorable Sabina Chege. That is the whip of Jubilee in parliament. That essentially shows you that there are three levels of leadership in parliament. We have Kenya Kwanza, we have Azimio, and we have Jubilee. So Jubilee is neither in Kenya Kwanza, neither is it in Azimio. So we are actually the most objective political party in parliament as it stands today.
It's division. How do you guys maintain credibility? You cannot solve, okay, your issues within the party are not solved yet. So how is that even, what picture is it bringing if you cannot come to an agreement solving your own party issues? And then there is this idea of having an idea of leading the nation as a whole.
Political parties, there's a reason political parties are called political parties. It is not an assembly of people who must agree on everything. Yeah? And so we have several things that we are also grappling with as a political party. And political parties have internal dispute resolution mechanisms, yeah, which the party has gone through. And we also have issues that are with the courts. And so the issues at the court have not been conclusively done. And you see now on that, you would not blame a political party for taking their issues to court, because that is part and parcel of our judicial process, that when you have a dispute, you take it to court. When you take it to court, you wait for the court's decision. So you cannot be able to victimize the party for waiting for a court decision, because now that becomes a judicial matter. So all of us have to sit and wait. And of course, sometimes also courts take some time, and we cannot vilify them for that, because and it's the whole reason why you're able to see that the court, a case that was done after election about the majority and the minority, the court made a decision 2 years later and said, indeed, Azimio is the majority. So yes, it's a court ruling, but is it a court ruling that is within the time frame? Like it had been overtaken by the, but then you could not vilify parliament for waiting for a court decision. Same case with us. Yes, I agree that we have several court issues within the disputes of within the political party, but that will be resolved by the courts, and that does not in any way make Jubilee less of a party in the leadership of this country. If anything, today, if you ask many people in the street, they'll tell you they preferred the Jubilee administration. Yeah.
But right now, we are heading to 2027 polls. Before we get into that, will you be vying for any seat for the 2027?
Yes. I'll still be vying for the Senate seat of Bungoma County in 2027.
Senate seat for Bungoma County.
Yes.
Now, having that idea in mind of you vying for a seat, there is part, okay, politics is spontaneous.
Yeah.
At one moment you are in government, supporting the government. At one moment the government is not working at all, based on what suits you best. So from where you sit, do you think that this is going to affect with the division within your party, some supporting the government, some in opposition? And also from where you stand, do you think this is going to affect your campaign strategy and everything that you're working on towards being the Senator of Bungoma?
Not really, because my vision about being the senator of Bungoma is about the people of Bungoma. It's about me selling my agenda to the people. And it's about me also selling my agenda to the nation, because remember, the Senate seat is a legislative seat, and therefore you not only serve the interests of where you come from, it's more of a national seat. So it is about the people making the decision. So it is not about what is happening at the top and the court cases in the political party. It has very little to actually do with that. And remember, by the time we get to the election, all our cases will be over, because at that time, the party will need to speak from one voice, the party will need to field candidates, the party will need to have signatories in terms of who is the Secretary General, who is this and who is that. So by that time, all those things would actually have been done. The biggest responsibility that I should be able to have right now is to be able to convince the people of Bungoma that I can be able to do a better job in legislation. And purely, my agenda is purely on legislation, on the agenda of youth employment. Because Bungoma County has some of the most educated people, but again, they are not employed. You'll go down in the villages there and you'll find very many young people in Changadens, in whatever, just they're idle people. And yet you check their credentials and you'll be shocked. Most of them are very educated, they have been to the universities. And so because as a young person, I would understand their tribulations more than the other person, that is the wholesome agenda that I would want to run on to, that we get to the Senate to effect policy that can be able to improve the employment span of the people.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to that time, are there tangible accomplishments that you'll be bringing that as a Jubilee youth chair?
Yeah.
Whether, despite the cases in courts and all that and wrangles and questions of credibility of the opposition, are there tangible accomplishments that you can mention that this is what I did during my tenure?
Very many things that I have been able to do as the Jubilee chair. First of all, in the last election in 2022, I pride in having led the political party that had the highest number of youth aspirants. We were the party that was number one in the highest number of young aspirants. Number two, we were the party that had the lowest subscription in terms of the money that was needed for young people to be able to pay on nominations. Most of the political parties did not waiver, but I was able to advocate for a waiver, that all aspirants who ran on Jubilee Party below the age of 35, their nomination fee was actually waived. Number three, when Jubilee was actually in government and we were the ruling party, it is Jubilee, if you remember, that started the culture of the appointment of young people in very high-level positions in government. We were the ones that started the culture of employing young people as directors. And that was something that was advocated from the political party. We had young people getting to be employed now as directors in parastatals. That had never been seen before. Like we had young people like Alex Matere, who was appointed at KBC to serve as a director. We had people like Commissioner Wamboi Nyutu, who got into NCIC as a commissioner. So we started the culture, and then we had Zach Kinuthia, who became a cabinet secretary at that time, courtesy of the Jubilee administration. So the agenda of young people getting into mainstream governance was actually started here. And that's why now today I've seen UDA trying to follow suit. Now they have appointed my friend Fikirini Jacobs as PS, together with a few others. So the culture of involving young people from at the highest level of governance actually is a culture that we started here at the Jubilee Party. And away from that, even today, we do a lot of trainings in terms of building the capacity of young people so that we ensure that it's not just about running for office, but it's about understanding what you are going to do while in office. And away from that, you see me every other time. I'm one of the biggest youth advocates in Kenya today in the media space and every place, advocating for young people and advocating for the governance space of young people. So I think as a youth chair, I have been able to do way more than I am required to do. I think now I qualify for sufficient promotion.